.NET developers, or I just said developers. Welcome to another tutorial video. This tutorial video, we're going to build a RESTful API using C# and ASP NET Core. We're also going to use Dapper. Dapper is a micro framework now, so like an ORM, so used in .NET development. So we're going to use Dapper. We're going to use really cool design pattern, repository pattern. I'm just trying to make this project as loosely coupled as possible. So I have a database like a database that has a developer table and people table. So because I want to keep this video short, may not build the people. You can just be for the developers. So I have an SQL Server, the DB inside of it. I'm going to have interfaces here. I develop a repository for our data access layer. This data access layer, then data access layer has interfaces that implemented data access layer here. Then for service layer, and then we have people service, we have developer service, and then controllers. We have people controller, developers controller. So let's get straight to building. Firstly, I want to show you the database we're going to use. SSMS. So these are all the endpoints. These are all the endpoints we'll build in this tutorial. I want to make it like 30 minutes at the most. 30 minutes long at the most. So let's see what we can come up with. Firing up SQL Server Management Studio right now. Should be opening. Excuse me. Okay, it's coming up. It's coming up. It's coming up. So, okay, it's opened. Now connect to my local server. Then databases. I have I think a developer DB. Yes, I have two tables that I want to use there. I have this developer table. See, let's select top on 1000 rows and see what's inside. So how about we just work with this? Let's just work with this one. So these developers. So let's open Visual Studio. I already have a session open, so I can just come here and create. Okay, let me open it as if I'm just opening Visual Studio. So let's see. Okay, I think everybody should be able to open Visual Studio or create a new project. So let's create a new project. A new project. Okay. Create a new project. Select ASP.NET Core Web Application. Click next. Then let's name it REST API. YouTube. Oh yeah, I don't know why. I just attach YouTube to all the names. REST API YouTube. So select this API and configure for HTTPS. Okay, let's choose HTTPS. Okay, but we don't need Docker support in this tutorial. So unless you want to be working with it, containerizing your application. Visual Studio is creating the project for us, so let's wait. Okay, good. Now we have a very basic ASP.NET Core web application. So I like to arrange. Let me come back to the diagram. So I like to arrange each one of these: the data access layer, the service layer, the controllers. I like to arrange them in different class libraries. My project. So I think it's a very good pattern that you can adopt also. So just click on solution and then right click, just choose new project. So in this search for templates, search for class library, class lib. So let's use this .NET standards. It's sort of like a common middle ground for most of the .NET versions. There are so many versions. So this .NET Standard is sort of like a common ground for each and every one of them. So a class library for .NET that targets .NET Standard, so it works. So I usually like to make a class library for my domain, my core data objects. So domain, or you can call it .core, whatever you want to make it. So let me copy this. I'm still new. Okay, that's for domain. It's going to create that class library. Great. Okay. Um, add the reference to. Okay, wait. We can do that later. So create another one for your data access layer. So you still search for class lib, search for class library, .NET Standard. You can just say dot data access dot. I usually like to put dot Dapper because I'm using Dapper for my data access. Should I want to use entity framework in the same project, I can just create another class library and just put dot entity framework so that anybody going through my code will understand that okay, this one is for accessing the same data, the same database using Dapper and then using entity framework. So just click create data access dot Dapper, and then the last one is the service layer. The service layer. So let's see class lib also. Take the class lib, then the .NET Standard, then dot services. I like to call them services. Wait, so click create. Okay, now we are just about done now. So now the next thing you should do is to add reference to all this class library into your main project, this big project, the main project. So just right click on it, click add project reference, add each and every one of them, domain, services, click OK. Great. Okay, so I think we're good for now. So firstly, let's come and inspect our database. We want to model this table, this developers table. So we have some fields, some columns: ID, developer name, email, GitHub URL, image URL, department, joint dates. So what we should sort of do is actually we're using Dapper. It means it automatically maps these columns in our database to our data objects. So um, let's go ahead and create a data object that models this thing, models this this table, this developers table. So I'll call it developer. So you do that under your domain. So I could just delete this. I don't need this. So okay, create. Right click on it. Create. Add new item. New item. And it's a class. So just call it developer.cs. The C sharp. So okay, public class developer. Okay, let's come to the database and see all of them. ID, developer name, email, GitHub URL. So let's say public int ID set get set public string developer name. So you make them exactly as they are on the database. Actually, Dapper is so intelligent that it automatically maps your data objects in your code to your columns and fields in the database. So email, email. Dapper is a very cool tool. It's really cool. It helps you to get a lot done in the shortest amount of time. And one other thing is that it helps me to be able to write plain old SQL queries in my code, and I really love that. It's awesome. It makes me to be able to not forget how to write SQL statements due to many of the object relational mapping technologies being developed nowadays. GitHub URL get set, then image URL, department and join date. So public string image URL gets set, public string department get set. So this tutorial is sort of like a beginner, or do I say somebody just starting out using um, C# and ASP .NET Core, trying to learn to use Dapper, so on. Join date. So this is not string, it's a date, it's a date time object. So public date time, joint dates, gets and set. Okay, so we're done. We're done modeling this table. So the next thing we should do is to we've created our domain. Now let's do our data access now. Let's do our data access. Our data access will be such that, let's come back here. So here we're going to have a repository that serves as a data access layer. So we'll have interfaces for it. So I'm going to build just the developer. I don't want to take so much time. So let's have an iDeveloper repository. So that's interface for our repository. So let's make I click here and click add item. It's an interface. So just say iDeveloper repository CS. So this will kind of lay out all the methods we are going to implement for our data access. So I want to get all items, all developers in the database. So task IEnumerable. IEnumerable is when you are returning a particular list of items. So it's general. So IEnumerable type of developer. It's a type of developer. It's a type of developer. Get all developers async. Okay, so the reason I'm getting this error is that I've not added reference. I've not added reference to use our project.domain in this data access. So what you should do is to click on data access and then click add project reference, then add domain. Okay, domain. It needs domain, so you have to add it as a reference. So once you come here, there will be an option to using to include it as a using directive. So great. So you see the error is clear now. Now let's what if we want to get a single developer? So task type of developer, get developer by ID. So we're going to have an int ID that is passed into the request. We write the ID like this. What if we want to get the developer by email? So if we want to get developer by email asynchronously. I want that. I want that. String email. Let me add async also to this. Okay, so now I want to add a new developer, void add developer, the type of passing the type of developer. Okay, void update developer, void update developer, void update developer, and then void delete developer int id also. Delete it using an id, a private key. Okay, so okay, this is our interface. Now we need to create a class, a developer repository. Look at our picture again. There's a developer repository that will implement this interface. So in this your data access, add a new item, and this is a class. So call it developer repository or CS, C sharp. Okay, public, it's a public class. Okay, before that, I'm going to say some things about the logic of how we're going to access the data. We are using Dapper. We're going to use system.data.sql client to connect to our SQL server, this SQL server. And let's go straight away to install some Nugget packages like Dapper an SQL client, and some other things that will help us to be able to fetch um, our DB, fetch from our DB. So right click on your data access class library, click manage Nugget packages, and then let's install, search for Dapper from the Nugget repository. So Dapper is a great project. I really like it. I think it's a project of Stack Overflow team. So it's really cool. Makes your work very easy and makes auto mapping. Assuming we were using entity framework, or we need to probably write an auto mapper or use something that will map our objects in our classes in this code to our database object. So it's really tedious sometimes. Although I'm not, that's not to mean that entity framework isn't great, but I think I prefer Dapper. And if I want to use stored procedures, because I'm going to make another tutorial on a more robust way of making Fluent RESTful APIs with Dapper, so that we're going to use stored procedures in the database. So you will see that Dapper makes it very easy to do that. So system.data.sql client. Okay, I will install this also. And I also need something to be able to get my configuration files, because I'm not going to hard code. I'm not going to put my database connection string inside the code, the data access code. That's unethical. It's not good. A real developer should not do that. So I'm going to use um, extension, Microsoft.extensions.configuration, Microsoft.extensions.config. So I will use it to connect to my to be able to fetch something from my app settings.json file, from this file here. I'm going to show you now this app settings.json. Okay, so okay, great. So now then we've installed some dependencies. You can check the data access project, check the dependencies packages. You can see Dapper configuration system.data.sql client. Great. So the next thing we should do now is to let me see if I can connect my database. Come here to Server Explorer. I can connect my database right away. Let's see. Connect with database. I need a local database. Wow. Let's see if I can be able to fetch my database. Okay, as a matter of fact, I already have this database connected, probably in some formal project. This is the database. This is database. Developer, can you see developer DB? So that's it. So I could just refresh this connection. Great, it's connected. So I'll grab my connection string from here. Can you see connection string? This is all I need to be able to connect to this database. Copy that, come to your app settings.json, and then come here and just say connection strings JSON. Okay, and then what do we call it? Let's say developers DB connection. Okay, and let me, it's too long. It's cool, quite cool. So paste it inside, and we are good to go. I also want to add multiple active result sets. Let's see, multiple active result sets equals to true. Let me add that. Okay, now we have a database connection string. So let's see how we can fetch this in our code. So this is the developer repository. Let's do something. We're going to use a lot of dependency injection and some other things. Oh, I don't want this tutorial to be so complicated. So protected read only, I configuration, the configuration. Let's call it config. It was two long names. So create a constructor for this class, developer repository, and then pass in an I configuration config. I'm not too sure if this tutorial is for a beginner, but if you can follow along, I'll really try my best. So okay, so that's that. Next thing is to create an IDB connection object. So that will be our main focus of connecting to this database right here, an IDB connection object. So create an IDB connection object called say connection to init your database connection. Okay, so now just do public IDB connection, call it connection. Okay, okay, and then it's just a get because you are not changing database connection. It's just a simple get. Like to make it so return new SQL connection, and it takes a connection string. So how do we fetch the connection string? We use this config object to fetch this guy here, this connection string here. So watch how we do that. So come back here, return new SQL connection string. Actually, if I over SQL connection, okay, initialize it. So it takes, so we do config dot get connection string, and then you pass in a connection string parameter. So I copy this and then paste it right here. So by that, you are not hard coding this connection string into your code for everybody to see. No, that's silly. Don't do that. Okay, now we can now get to implementing the interface, the iDeveloper interface. So let's quickly do that. Implement iDeveloper repository, and then you see it throws a lot of error because it has not been implemented. So just click right here and say implement interface, and all your errors disappear. Great. So for add developer, let's write add developer. Firstly, I like to create a try catch block so that I can um, effectively understand everything that goes wrong. Right? If there's an error, you should throw the exception, whatever the exception is, and then inside there, you wrap your whole connection and your query code in a using IDB connection DB connection equals to the data connection we instantiated up here. Yes, equals to this connection to this developer DB database. Great. So let's go on. Okay. Then curly brace, and then here we can now open the connection. Actually, Dapper does automatic opening and closing of connection for you, but I don't know why I just like to still disturb myself. So create a query, string query is equals to, we're going to write a query for adding something to the database. So, okay, so how do we add something to the database? This is normal SQL. Insert into, what's the name of the table? What's the name of the table? Developers. Okay, developers. So insert into developers. Okay, takes excuse me, developer name, email, GitHub URL. You don't need to add ID because it's auto generated. It's a primary key, it's an identity key. So developer name, make them they are exactly as they are in the database. Email, what else? GitHub URL, image URL, GitHub URL, image URL, I think department, if I'm right. Okay, and then department, and then joint date. Okay, values. Okay, then we're going to have all of these again. Values. Great. So here we will have, they are now parameters. These values are parameters that passed into it. So Dapper lets you not get lazy, lets you still have a reason to learn SQL and be very good at it. Okay, so that's a query. We're trying to add it, so that will be. I usually like to use. Okay, let's just do. Let's just do TB connection execute. Execute execute query. Okay, and that's all about that. So for delete, so for delete, it's the same procedure. Create a try catch block. Should something go wrong, you know what the error is. Exception EX and throw whatever the exception is. Okay, and then using IDB connection, B connection equals to our connection instantiated at the very top of this code, this developer repository code. So now we sort of do a redundant TB connection dot open and then string query. Query is okay. So we are deleting, right? So that's I think delete from developers where okay ID is equals to at ID the parameter, whatever the parameter is that you passed. Okay, so query, excuse me, I didn't pass the object parameter here. Developer. Okay, great. I didn't pass the object parameter here. So okay, so we are on delete now. See where I have okay, so now the next thing is to execute db connection dot execute execute and then query and then new id here is equals to the id passed. This id here, it is this id you pass to your delete developer method. So that's what that means. So now we have the get all developers asynchronously. So get all developers async. Um, Same procedure. Create a try catch block first. Throw exception wherever the exception is, so that we can know what is going on with our code. Using IDB connection. Can you see how easy it is to use that? Sort of very easy, like just doing simple stuff. And you're really doing stuff. So using IDB connection is equals to this open, and then our query is this. Okay, so this get all developers. So can do select star from developers. Let's start from developers. This is just fetching all of them. So and that will be db connection dot query. You are passing a developer to generic, so passing a developer object. So query, pass query, and then you're done. But I think it's it's an awaitable method. So return await this. make it async query, and once it's async, so that's be query asynchronously. Dapper has a query async method. So okay, this is done. Usually to improve performance on fetching your data, I don't advise. For example, if you have projects where you have a lot of records, like you have thousands of records, don't use asterisk if you are trying to fetch everything. Write the names of all the fields, all the columns. So what I mean is this, like instead of doing select star, I could just do select ID, select developer name, email, GitHub URL, image URL, image URL, department, joint dates from developers like this improves performance. So I've tested it, it works. So should you have records that go in thousands, hundreds of thousands, so to improve your fetching performance, so you can just don't stay away from asterisk, but for something as little as just 5 records, so you can just say select star from blah 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 like that. So, okay, let's do get developer by email. The same process, create a try catch block first, exception ex, throw whatever the exception is, and then using IDB. Oh, that's not using. He spelled that. Okay, great. Using IDB connection, DB connection equals to connection. Okay, so DB connection dot open. Okay, the connection dot open. Then your query. What's our query? So we are getting developer by email, right? Okay, that's select from developers table name where what email is equals to at email parameter email. So using parameterized statements like this help you prevent vulnerabilities like SQL injection. So now we're going to return await. This is an awaitable method. This get developer by email async. Await DB connection dot, we are returning only one record. Yeah, because the developer, only one developer who have this email we are getting it by. So it's going to be a query first or default asynchronously like this exactly. First or default meaning a single record. Very first one where you see this email matches returning. That's what it means. So passing the developer, then write query. Okay. So then we're done. This method make it async and all your errors, all your worries will disappear. Okay, we're not done. I didn't pass the parameter. So you pass the parameter, new email equals to the email that is passed. Then you put the email passed into the method. Email. I should have made them have different forms, like one all in lowercase, but no worries. I think I'm already spending more than 30 minutes now. Okay, okay. We still have our services, we still have our controllers. Our controller, just a single controller right now. Get developer by ID asynchronously. Create a try catch. I'll be very fast now. I think I've explained most of the steps. Throw exception, whatever it is. Then using IDB connection, DB connection equals to the connection initialized from the top. Then DB connection dot open. Then we're going to write our query. Query is what? Okay, we are getting developer by ID, right? Select select from developers where ID equals to at ID. Have I not written this before? The top somewhere. I have. As a this is delete. Oh, that was delete. I just remember that past ID somewhere. Okay, that was delete. Okay, great. So, okay, return the connection dot we are querying first or default asynchronously. First or default async passing a developer, then passing your query, and then now put your object parameter that's an ID equals to whatever the ID is that was passed in the request. Okay, return await. Let's await this method. It's an synchronous method. Okay, that's that. Then update developer. This is simple. So just an update. So create a try catch block. Exception hex. Throw whatever the exception is using IDB connection. DB connection equals to connection. Okay, using IDB connection, DB connection, then open the database. The database connection should it not be open yet. String query is what this verbatim of whatever it's in this string objects. Okay, update, right? Okay, update SQL. That's update developers. Set okay developer name equals to at developer name email equals to at email. Which other one? Github URL equals to at Github URL. Image URL equals to at image URL, and department equals to at department, and joint date equals to at joint date. Okay, so that's that. So you can just come here and okay, then we'll do a DB connection dot execute your query, and then your object parameter, which is our developer object, developer, which is this developer object. Okay, now we're done with data access. Let's go to services now. Services. I don't need this default class open for me. Let's create an interface to all of these data access methods. Interface, and we call it iDeveloper. Let me show you. Let's come back to our diagram. Oh, so that will be iDeveloper service. We're going to create this now. iDeveloper service, iDeveloper service.cs. So come right here, the public interface, and then for fetching all developers task, I enumerable or types of developer. It's get all developers. Okay, fetch a single developer by ID. Developer gets developer by ID int ID task task okay, fetch by email, right? Developer get developer by email string email. Okay, void add developer 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 delete developer int id. Okay, let me add reference to domain in this service project so that the errors we're having on that add project reference and make it be able to access data access. We need data access here and domain. Great. So I can now use developer object here now. Developer class here. So now we're done with this interface. Let's create a class that implements this interface. So that will be developer service. That will be developer service here. Okay. I'm already taking so much time here now. Okay. So developer service.cs, developer service.cs. It's a public class. Okay. Now let's just try to implement the iDeveloper service, the interface we just created now. So come and click implement interface. Great. So but before that, I want to use the essence of this loose complaint is this. We are going to dependency inject our data access layer into our service layer. That is, we will use this iDeveloper repository, we will inject it into the developer service so that we can have access to all the methods in this developer repository. This is our data access layer. Okay, so come back to developer service, and just at the top here, before you even create your constructor, you can create a protected read-only. This is how we DI, dependency inject. So protected read-only, or you can make it a private read-only, anyone. Protected read-only iDeveloper repository, and call it developer repository. Then you create your constructor for this developer service, public developer service, and then you pass it in iDeveloper repository, developer repository. Okay, so this one here is equals to developer repository. In Java, you do something like okay, let's say private iDeveloper repository, blah blah blah, iDeveloper repository repo, and then you come here. You can also do the same thing. This.repo equals to repo. You can also do the same thing, but I think I like this method. It's my code cleaner and does not confuse anybody. Yeah, people can easily understand your code. So okay, so now it's very easy. What you just do is you now have access through this developer repository. You now have access to all the methods in this data access layer, in this data access developer repository. So now, can you see what's happening? This service does not have direct access to this developer repository, but through its interface. This is called loose coupling. But let's not go into all the details today. So now for add developer, just do a simple developer repository dot. Can you see all the methods inside here are here now? Dot add developer. I'm passing your developer object. You are done. Delete developer. Delete developer. Developer repository dot delete developer ID. Okay. Okay. get all developers, return developer repository dot get all developers asynchronously. Can you see how easy that is? Okay, get developer by email, return developer repository dot get developer by email asynchronously. Okay, get developer by ID, return developer repository dot get developer by ID async ID. Okay, okay, update developer is developer repository dot update developer passing the developer method object. So okay, so now we're done with our service layer. Next thing we should do is to go to create controller. You can create your controller in this controller folder that comes with your ASP.NET Core web application project, and you can also create a class library for controller also. If I have very big project, that's when I do this. So I can just come to these controllers, create a new file, like add a new item. I don't want controller. I want to write everything from scratch. So I really like so it's going to be a developer's controller CS. So okay, watch me spit out a lot of .NET Core MVC code. It will extend a particular class in the .NET framework, ASP.NET Core. So controller base. This one is the one used particularly for API controllers. Okay, and then you have a sort of annotation as API controller. So in Java, let's say in Spring Boot, you have something like this, REST controller, right? Okay, good. So this REST controller in Spring Boot is API controller in ASP.NET Core web applications. So and then our route is going to be the way we want our route to be is we want it to have a sort of API slash v1 slash okay, then our controller name controller. So that's what I want my route to be. So all endpoints are going to be mapped to this route. So okay, so now we have let's start creating each of them. And in all the services we have a get all developers, right? So let me create the get all developers. As a matter of fact, this is an HTTP get method. So then I'm going to have a public. I also want to add the response type also. So produces response type, okay, that's status codes dot I want 200 okay, produces a 200 okay response type. So public, I want it to be an asynchronous method. So public task I action result. I action result is a action results. I don't want to explain action result. Get all developers. Okay, it doesn't take any parameter. So what we do is var developers create an anonymous developers is what? Okay, first I've not injected. You have to dependency inject your service into your controller also. The same thing we did here, we are going to do for inside we are going to do inside the controller also. So inject your service. I don't know if I've added the service as a dependency for our main project reference. Okay, it's already added. Good. So it's going to see it automatically. Okay, so just say I developer, okay, protected read only I developer service. Okay, just call it, let's say developer service, and then create a constructor for your controller. Public developer is controller. Okay, I developer service developer service. Great. Okay. Okay, so now that means developer service equals to this developer service here. Okay, now you have access to every method in this developer service. You have access to add developer in this place, delete developer, all of them. So for get all developers, that will be our developer service dot. Can you see get all developers? It's as simple as drinking water. So return OK. It's an HTTP status okay. So return AP HTTP OK developers. What's the problem? Okay, wait. Let me await it. Ask action result. Sorry. Okay, good. We're good. So let's do um get developer by ID. So HTTP get, you can put ID produces response type, produces a 200 also. So public synchronously task I action results get developer by ID. It takes an ID parameter. Okay, so var developer, our developer is equals to await developer service dot get developer by ID, passing your ID param, and then return an OK developer. Okay, we're done with that. Let's create the other one. HTTP get email. This takes an email, so that's the get developer by email. Produces a 200 response type also. So public async task I action result get developer by email string, takes a string email parameter, and then var developer is what await stable developer service dot get developer by email, passing your email parameter, and then return an OK. Okay, great. Okay, so now we're done with all the gets. Now let's do the post request for add and put for date and delete. So okay, HTTP post. So this is our add now. So this produces a created, so produces response type, status codes, status codes, excuse me, status codes dot 201. I want a 201 created, so I want an OK too. I want an OK too. Let me just copy OK here. Okay, then let's write it. So public I action results add developer or whatever you want to call the method. So from body, passing it from the body of the request, developer, passing the developer object. Okay, so now what we want to do is to do a developer is what developer service dot add developer Okay. First, I have to check if correct request, the right request is sent. So if not, model dot is valid. I have to check if the request is good. If not, model dot, excuse me. Oh, if not, model dot is valid. So if the model is not good, model state, I said model. If the model is not good, it should a bad request, return a bad request. So, but if it is good, you should add it. So you should add it and also do something and return. I like to return a created as action with my post, because once it creates it, it also shows the resource you just created, you just added. So return created as action. It takes three things. It takes action name, so that will be name of get developer by ID. So name of get developer by ID. Okay, and then it takes a new whatever the ID is. So the ID on this get developer by ID method up here, if you scroll up, you see it. ID is what developer dot ID, our current object we're passing dot ID. And the last but not least takes the developer object. So that's, you're going to see it when we start testing. Okay, so HTTP put for our update method produces, do I want an okay, or let me put the same thing for this also. I want a created and okay. So public high action result update developer from body, a developer object. Okay, if model state is not valid, if the request sent is bad, it is bad. Okay, so to return to the requester bad request. Then if it is now valid, else developer service add that developer. No, update the developer record. Update developer. Mm, doing the created as action. So now return okay. Just return okay. I don't need created as action. Just return okay. Okay, we're almost done. Last but not the least, we make the delete. So HTTP delete. So produces okay. Produces response type okay. Public high action results. Delete developer. Int ID takes an ID parameter. So simply just developer service dot delete developer passing the ID, and we are done. Okay, so done. Okay, okay, so we are done. Now let's try to see. Okay, I have a controller, I have a service. So this is my database, right? Faith Olusegun, Ajiniro Joshua. Okay, let's just run. Let's just try to run this code and see. Okay, first, before that, I need to do some things. I need to register my all my implementations and their interfaces in the configuration in the dependency injection container under startup.cs. So come here under startup.cs. So under okay, so just add all of them. Services dot add scope, add scope. I'll do for the repository. So developer, let me do for the service first. Developer service, developer service. I'll do the same thing for the developer repository and developer services dot add scope developer repository developer repository. Okay, so I think that's all. Now let's see if we can run this code. And just use IS server. Oh, I've seen an error. I've seen a bug. This is developer repository. Okay. Okay. I think I'm running with debugging. Okay. An error occurred while starting the. Okay. Cannot instantiate. Yes, I've seen the error. Yeah. So on the start of the CS, I've saved it now. I've saved it now. So let's run it again and see. Okay, can you see? Looks like code. So let's try to visit our own application. VLAN/developers. Can you see? Can you see all the developers in our database? Let me fire up Postman. Postman. Excuse me. Okay. So Postman is opened. Let's try to create a collection. Let's create a new collection for this API. New collection. Developer API collection. Okay, let's add a request. Get all developers. Let's call it get all developers request. Great. So get all developers. Get all developers. Let's copy this URL. Get all developers. Paste it here. It's a get already, so just send the request. Can you see ID of one? Solution professor, developer by name, General Joshua. Okay. And how about we try by ID? So let's just put one here and send the request. Oh, the request matched multiple endpoints. Okay. So now let me show you something now. So whenever you have your controller and you have many get requests, like that look similar, that are taking like only single arguments each. So what I like to do is to, for each and every one of them, I like to add a route for each of them, like a custom route for each of them. So I like to make it the name of the method, the controller action method. So I like to do something like this: route, okay, action. Great. So once you put this, and then now underneath, now put HTTP get mapping. Okay. So we're going to do this for all of them, like get developer by ID and get developer by email. So let's do the same thing. Get developer by ID and get developer by email. So and then get developer by ID, get developer. We've done that. So we can rerun the application. Then our routes, of course, we have to change. Our routes we have to change because now we're going to have something like this: developers slash the action method. That's get the exact name on the controller as get developer by ID, and then this will be ID, the parameter we are passing in the method. So I'll show you. Okay, the code is running now. Great. So let me first demonstrate this in a browser. API slash v1 developers slash get developer by ID. Then passing the parameter of ID equals to 1. Should return my name. What's going on? ID, get developer by ID. ID is 1. Let's see. Okay, incorrect syntax from, can you see incorrect syntax near from? Okay, developer repository line. Okay, did I write an incorrect syntax? Let's see. Trying to call get developer by ID. So let's come here, get developer by ID. Okay. What is the issue? Okay. Let me rerun. Let's see what happens. Okay. Okay. So let me stop execution. Let's step through the code. Developers controller. Let me put a breakpoint here and come to my service also. Let's see. Get developer by ID. Get developer by ID. Put a breakpoint. Okay. I think the problem is with the way I wrote my comment. Select from developers. Okay. Okay. Now let's run it now. Okay, great. Let's come back here. Send the request. Okay, it's opening. Great. Request has reached the controller. Step into it. Let's see. And we are inside the developer service now. Mm, we get to developer repository. Okay. Okay, DB connection is still, is it open now? Let's see if the DB connection is open now. Yeah, DB connection state is open. Okay. Okay. Let's step through. Step through. Okay, let's see. Let's see this. Wow, it returned it. So great. So okay. Oh, yeah, that's it. Um, let's try to get developer by email. I think I've figured out what the issue is now. I think I've figured it out. Let me see. Get developer by email. By email. So get developer by email. Get developer by email. Get developer by email. So um, let's go and call get developer by email, and then takes an email. My email is fetolusegun60@gmail.com. I have sent the request now. Okay, incorrect syntax near the word from. Exactly the same thing we got here. That's not the issue. I think the issue is my email equals to email, most probably. Okay, send the request again. No content. Developer slash get developer by email. How does the controller look? Oh, I didn't change it for email. Why didn't I? Forgot that. Oh, no content. I should change it for email. Okay, good, good. Now let's run again. Now it should work now. Should work now. Pretty fine. So I think that's just all you need to know for now. Let me see. Send. Oh, get developer by email. It's not found. Why? Get developer by email slash developer by email. 44395 API slash P1 get developer by email. Email equals solution 160. Oh yeah. What was I doing wrong in Postman? What was I doing wrong in Postman? Probably the URL is not right. Yes. Okay, so it's working. Let's try to add. Let's try to add a developer. So of course, this will need just API slash developer post request. So the body is going to be. Let me copy this body here. Set JSON raw. You don't need to pass in an ID. Developer name, John Smith. Yes, Smith. Okay. Okay, now let's try to send this. Okay, unsupported media type. Why? Great. So that's it. That's it, guys. Thank you for the patience. Both the writing of the code and debugging session. Next tutorial, I will try to add Swagger documentation. It makes it really cool to test your APIs. Let me show you what Swagger is. This is one of my projects I was working on before. So let me show you how Swagger works. It looks really cool. So you should use it in your projects. Okay, now okay, so this is my API slash index.html. Yeah, this is Swagger. So this is Swagger makes it really cool to test APIs. Makes it really cool. Like get airport by ID. But let's check one of them out. So execute. Okay, I'm actually running it in debugging mode. I'm kind of debugging it. So let's just step through. And you see, that's returned my airport. So okay, so this is Swagger. This is the result of this request we just sent now. So thank you. That will be all for now. Later, we'll add Swagger to our developer API. Thank you. If you like this video, you can like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what your thoughts, and if you have questions, please feel free to drop them questions. Thank you. Now see you later. Thanks.